Hello and welcome to Nate Merriflix. I'm Nate, you're you, and are you ready to rumble? Because in this corner we have Poltergeist, in this corner we have Insidious, and they are going to square off today in a movie fight to determine which is better. This fight will be 5 rounds, and they will be duking it out over characters, music/score, direction, themes, and of course, overall scariness. So go ahead and place your bets now. Who you got? Who's gonna win this fight? I'm so excited. Let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it on. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so round 1 is about characters and acting. So let's start with Insidious. Now, Patrick Wilson is often lauded by pretty much everyone for his work as Ed Warren in the Conjuring universe, but it would be my assertion that he's actually better in Insidious. As Josh, we get to see him be a doting, genial father who slowly becomes racked with so much sorrow as his son slips into a comatose state. He also becomes a man that is struggling with repressed memory and pent-up anger, so that's a much more fascinating character to watch than Ed Warren. And then you have Rose Byrne as the mother, Renee. She's fantastic in this. I think she gives the greatest performance in Insidious. If you don't believe me, go back and watch and look at all the things she does with this. And then Lin Shaye as Elise. This is probably Lin Shaye's best role to date. But you go over to Poltergeist and it's just a more fleshed out family. Not only do we get to see them terrified, which is awesome because there's so many cool sequences in this film and they do such a good job portraying the fear, but we get to see them as a real family just goofing off around the breakfast table and being silly, goofing on each other. This movie has more humor than Insidious, and a lot of the reason is because of the actors in the script and what it has to say about this family. Of course, the side characters, supporting characters, they're fantastic too. Insidious doesn't have anybody like a Tangina Barrons. I mean, she was wrong when she said, "This house is clean." But she's so dang quirky and memorable that you kind of have to love her, and like I said, Insidious doesn't have anybody like that. So, round 1, it's a decisive victory for Poltergeist. So in round 2, Insidious needs to get on the board, and they're coming out swinging with a powerhouse performance here in the roundabout music and score, because right from the jump, right from the title card, Insidious is just throwing haymakers. Those iconic, dissonant, crazy-ass strings just going all berserk. It works, but it's also just a timeless sounding score. Those strings are insane, but they are effective, and they would fit a classic horror regardless of decade. They would work in the 80s, in the 60s, and 2010. They would work now in 2020. I cannot say the same for Poltergeist, though, as Jerry Goldsmith, he did the composition and the music for Poltergeist, and he has had a fantastic career. If you look at that resume, it includes titles such as, Poltergeist, but also Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, Jurassic Park, and the list goes on and on and on. He often works with Steven Spielberg, who of course has so much to do with Poltergeist. But I think that's kind of the issue here. The Poltergeist score doesn't necessarily feel like a horror score. It feels very much like a 80s blockbuster type of score. The music, it's great, but I don't know that it scares you, that is when it's not being the Star-Spangled Banner. Whereas with Insidious, you have original compositions that feel terrifying. They add a very big punch to every scene. It feels like the scares have been just injected with steroids through the music. The soundscape as a whole in Insidious is terrifying and effective, and the movie makes use of Tiny Freaking Tim, which is just such a nice little creepy touch. I don't know why it wasn't done sooner, but when you hear that playing on the vinyl, and then you hear it playing again in Darth Maul Demon's Lair, it just makes your skin turn into goose flesh. So round 2, it is going to Insidious, which means we're all tied up. So round 3 is about directing, and I must say, when I went back and rewatched Insidious, I was very impressed. James Wan does some real genius things in Insidious. But that being said, round 3, it has to go to Poltergeist and Tobe Hooper / Steven Spielberg. It's so strange that to this day, we don't know who did what with this film. There's gossip, there's debate, everybody has a take on it. Tobe Hooper, his name is on the movie, he's credited with it, but we know that producing was Steven Spielberg, and then he also wrote the script, and there's just so much talk that he actually needed to step in and direct the whole thing. Who knows, but whoever it is, whichever man is responsible, or if it was a joint effort, this movie's direction is just astounding. There's so much going on here. It was such a complex task. There's so many different camera angles. There's so many tricks of the camera. They play with lighting. They play with set pieces. The production value is just insane. They take effects that you've seen before and they just do it at a much higher level than maybe it had ever been done in horror at that time, and it really has been replicated since in many instances. For example, the scene where the mom was just outside taking a little swim with some skeletons, she runs in because she hears her children screaming for her, and she looks down at the end of this corridor, the end of this hallway, and there's that shut door, and the children are behind there. She has to get there, but we get a dolly zoom, but it's not just any dolly zoom. It is this vertigo-inducing type of dolly zoom that I've never seen anything quite like it. Now, this trick of the camera, it's employed all the time in horror now, but like I said, this movie, even though it came out some 30 plus years ago, that dolly zoom, it may be one of the greatest ever, and there's so many different points in this film that are like that. It's something you've seen before, but it's just done so much better, and it's at a level that I don't think Insidious ever really approaches. So obviously round 3, it's all Poltergeist. And round 4, our participants take on very different strategies because this round is about themes. Insidious chooses to really just narrow in on a single central theme and goes to knock it out of the park, and I would say that they do. Meanwhile, Poltergeist, they kind of dabble with a few different themes and they have a lot to say about each. So with Insidious, we get this character, Josh. Now Josh, like I mentioned earlier, he's got some repressed childhood trauma, but now if he wants to save his family and he wants to save his son from the same type of demons that have latched onto him, he can't repress these things any longer. He has to confront this trauma and overcome it if he wants to save his family. But earlier in the film, when he's resistant to do so, he loses his son to this comatose state, and he's drifting further and further away into the further. And then his wife, Renee, she's being plagued by specters and evils that he's not willing to admit are real. So, he's got to get better, and he's got to step up to the plate and be a more complete, better man if he wants his family to survive and thrive. Then you go over to Poltergeist, and there's just a whole lot of stuff going on here. The movie opens with a Star-Spangled Banner. The dad is reading a book about Ronald Reagan, and there's just so much about this movie, about Reagan's America, about the glossy exterior of this ever-waxing suburbia, but that underneath it all is a bedrock of problems, that the sins of thy father, all of this American dream, it has been built on a foundation of lies and tragedy, and that so much evil has been done to get where we are, to procure all these material possessions. I mean, heck, Dalton drifts off into a comatose state. Caroline gets sucked up by the TV, a symbol of the decay of the American nuclear family. But it's just kind of all over the place. You could get onto that. You could get onto child rearing as the parents are shown smoking weed and drinking a little too much and really indulging, while their eldest daughter is walking around with the hickeys on her neck that go unnoticed. She's getting hit on by the construction workers, and the mom seems kind of non-bothered by it. She's just kind of happy that her daughter kind of gives them a little, one of those. And then her daughter also mentions a weird little one-time rendezvous at a motel. The mom's like, what'd you say? And she's like, nothing. She's like, whatever, good, I don't want to parent anyway. But there's so much going on. They get into imagery. I mean, when the mom goes into the portal or whatever you can call it, the other realm, to get Caroline and comes back, it looks like the rope is an umbilical cord, and then we cut to a scene where she's holding Caroline in the bathtub like this, like a newborn Caroline's all covered in all sorts of weird, chunky, flesh, red gut stuff. So you're playing with that. You're taking on so much though. And that's why this round, it's going to Insidious, because Insidious, it focuses in and it just does that one theme so well. Lee Winnell's script is so intelligent and so well crafted, and it hits it out of the park, while Poltergeist, there's so much to say, there's so much to read into, but it kind of gets the waters murky. Look at it this way. Insidious dives into the deep end, while Poltergeist is kind of on the side of the pool, kicking his feet in the water before getting up to go play in the sprinkler and then toss some water balloons around. So round 4 leaves us in a dead heat. It's tied up 2 apiece, heading into the decisive round 5. All right, y'all, it's the final round. Who's gonna take it? We gotta talk about scares. These are scary movies. So, did I mention Insidious's music? because damn. But also, that iconic jump scare courtesy of the Darth Maul demon, that thing was so big at its time. And then I have to imagine if you're a parent, it's much more terrifying to envision just coming into your child's room one day to find them completely unresponsive to some mysterious effect. All that being said, you gotta give it to Poltergeist. There's too many great scares in Poltergeist. This thing has a bevy of heralded, beloved, iconic sequences and scares. Everything from the tree, to the clown, to the swimming with skeletons, to the mom being attacked in the bed, to the chairs stacking, which went on to inspire Paranormal Activity, to the man peeling his face off, to the giant skull coming out of the closet. The list goes on and on and on. It is insane when you think about how much they packed into Poltergeist. So that being said, I don't feel bad about it. I feel like that's the obvious way to go here, and obvious is often right. So round 5, the whole match at this point, it's going to Poltergeist. It was a good fight, 3-2, but Poltergeist, it's a classic for a reason. I think Insidious will assume that status eventually if it hasn't already, but it's just not quite on the level of Poltergeist. So there you go. That is how I ruled this fight. That's how I scored it. How did you score it? Be sure to comment below. Which movie do you think is a superior film? And then also, which movies would you like to see square off in a future movie fight to determine which is better? Other than that, you have a fantastic day. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I am Nate for Nate Flick saying that's a wrap.